This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning. Manitoba Ag and the Value Added Branch would like to welcome you to today's ERP session and how ERP software can increase efficiency and profitability for your food processing business. Our first speaker of the day is Carissa. Carissa Caruk is a program manager and business coach with the Manitoba Entrepreneurial Hubs based out of Dauphin, Manitoba. The Hub is an entrepreneurship support program that assists individuals at all stages of business through individual business coaching, group programs, and pathfinding services. To date, their focus has been supporting women entrepreneurs in rural and northern Manitoba. However, in 2023, the program's mandate is expanding to support more business owners in rural and northern Manitoba as well as Saskatchewan. Carissa is a certified leadership coach, trained facilitator, and business advisor with over 15 years of experience working with entrepreneurs in rural Manitoba. She is passionate about supporting individuals as they grow businesses, develop teams, and evolve in their roles. Welcome, Carissa.
Thank you, Karen. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I have the great pleasure of kicking everything off here for you today. I'm going to advance through a few slides to get us started. So for today, we're really my portion here too is really to look at, are you setting your business up for success? So thinking about your business in general as we move forward into the solutions and opportunities that we're going to talk about for you here today. So I am going to switch off my camera just so that we can ensure we don't have broadband issues. So I am here working away behind the scenes. Perfect. So the work that I do is centered around helping business owners get clear on who they are, what they want their business to look like, where they want to go, and what they need to put into place to make that happen. So my role here today is to get you primed up and thinking about how these tools that we're going to talk about today could be a benefit to achieving your business goals. So what we do is we talk about in our work, planning for success. But what does plan for success mean? Many entrepreneurs get into business because they're passionate about a product or service that they provide and are on a mission to get into the hands of as many business people or as many clients and customers as possible, as soon as possible. Many entrepreneurs are action takers and risk takers, ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work, figuring things out as they go along. And for many, the only planning that they may have done is in preparation of a business plan that likely got filed away in a folder once completed or pulled off the shelf when it's time to look for financing. When we talk about planning for success, we're talking about proactively working on your business and taking steps to make all aspects as efficient as possible, putting in processes and systems that allow you to proactively run your business instead of working in constant reactionary mode. So this morning, before we jump into learning about these exciting tools and programs that are on this slate for today that might be able to assist you with your goals and success this year, I'm going to invite you to take a few minutes with me here first to think about your business in general and where you're headed in 2023. So my style for my presentation this morning will be a little bit different than the others, as I'm going to ask you to do some thinking and writing, a little bit more workshop style. So I invite you to grab a piece of paper and a pen or whatever writing utensils you're using today to take notes from today's presentation. And think about the following questions for your own personal use, no need to share with a group or any of us here. I'm going to lead you through 5 questions here this morning at approximately 1 minute for each question. So I know these silent pauses as I got my little timer set up behind me and you're not seeing anybody else in the room might feel a little bit awkward, but sometimes a minute feels really long and sometimes a minute feels really short to think about some of these questions that I'm going to ask you. I will give you a 15-second warning when I'm back, but please know that I haven't disappeared and I'm here still counting down the time as I work you through these questions. So the first thing I'd like you to just pause and reflect on in your business is, what is your long-term vision for your business 3 to 5 years from now? And I'm going to give you a minute and I'll tell you when we're 15 seconds to move on to the next one. So what is your long-term vision for your business 3 to 5 years from now? Jot down some notes for yourself. 15 seconds, then I will move on to the next question. So the second question I invite you to think about is, what are your business goals for 2023? Make some notes if you've set some goals. Fifteen seconds till I switch to the next question. So the third question I ask you to think about is, what is working well for you in your business right now? Your operations, your leadership, whatever pops into mind. What is working well for you? Fifteen seconds, and then I will move it over to the next one. So the fourth question I invite you to think about is, where are you struggling in your business? Fifteen seconds, and then we'll move on to the last question. So the final question that I'd like you to ponder here and make some quick notes on are, what systems and processes do you have in place already, and how are they documented? Fifteen seconds, and then we will move forward. So in my experience working with entrepreneurs at various levels and different businesses, different sizes across the province for the last 15 years, I've really found that challenges arise in business usually as a result of a lack of one of the three following items: a lack of planning, a lack of systems and processes, or a lack of consistent action. So doing planning, and putting systems into place takes time. And if you're not a planner by nature or someone who enjoys doing that, like myself, it can feel like a waste of time for many folks. When running a business, carving out time to work on your business for planning and putting systems into place can save you more time, energy, and money in the long run. Without plans and systems in place, you may be making it more difficult to achieve success. So a couple of quotes that we always think about in terms of, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And by failing to plan, you're preparing to fail. So a couple of things to keep in mind. As we continue to talk about having the importance of a plan and some of these systems, your business is only as strong as the weakest link. So planning for the future, monitoring progress, analyzing results and efforts, putting in systems can help to address some of the struggle that you may have identified when we did this little bit of brainstorming on our own this morning. So planning and systems are especially important when you have a team of staff so that everyone knows and understands the direction that you're going and their role in making it happen. I work with many business owners who walk around with all their plans safely tucked around in their brains, keeping all that knowledge in one place, which makes it difficult for others on your team to help support you in your goals. So if you think about the current state of your business, how are you managing your time? What is your day-to-day role in the business? What does your day look like when you're out there actually boots on the ground? Do you have a team? Are they working as efficiently as they could be? Are they clear on what needs to get done and by when? Are you proactively planning for the future when it comes to things like fulfilling orders, managing inventory, launching new products? Or do you find that you're constantly just trying to keep up and reacting to timelines and situations that arise as we go? And again, thinking about those systems or processes that you've listed out there that are already in place for your business. How are they documented? Are they linked to other steps in the operations, or are you working in silos in some of those activities that you're doing? So thinking about how you're set up and structured at this current moment as well. So as your business grows and changes, your role as a business owner evolves too. And in many cases, we're so busy working in our business that we don't have time to zoom out and work on our business. If you think back to your long-term vision and goals, what needs to change in your day-to-day operations in order for you to move forward to reach your goals? So what got you here won't get you there. And thinking about where you want to go, what do you need to adjust to make that happen? So as we move forward, do you have a clear understanding of where your business is going? Do you have consistent processes in place for planning, analyzing your operations, and ensuring that your team is working as efficiently as possible? Are you scheduling in consistent checkpoints throughout the year to zoom out and proactively work on your business and assess your operations? And if you answer no to any of the above, or maybe, I invite you to really think about the resources that we're going to talk about here more this morning, to think about them as potential solutions for your business. How might these tools be of benefit to help you address those challenges that we've talked about, or to help you move forward towards that longer vision that you're looking for in your business? So what can you do today to set yourself up for greater success tomorrow? What resources or support do you need to help you succeed in 2023? And what investments do you need to consider making to help you move forward? If you think about the saying that we hear all the time, how can you work smarter, not harder? So as you listen to the rest of today's speakers, I encourage you to think about your goals, your long-term vision, and the challenges that you're currently facing in your business, and consider how these tools and resources being presented today can help you improve your operations to meet your business goals for 2023 and beyond. So thank you for spending this first portion of this morning together thinking about what it could look like to run your business more effectively in 2023. So if you're looking for support with your planning this year, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to share additional resources with you, or we can book a strategy call to further discuss. I'm happy to open the floor for discussions, or feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is listed above.
Thanks, Carissa.
Right.
Are there any questions for Carissa? Okay, with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, Carissa, for that overview. We are listening attentively to learn what we can today.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. I think we're going to move next to our speaker that's coming up next. We are pleased to introduce Bryan Hack, a CPA, CMA, and principal of the BHC Group. Bryan's consulting career began in 2002, learning, implementing, and project managing enterprise resource planning, which is ERP systems, and other systems surrounding ERP. After 10 years in this role, he joined a startup management consulting firm where he grew the firm and provided valuable software selection services and implementation support to his clients as either a project manager, business analyst, subject matter expert, and or project sponsor or advisor to ensure that those implementation projects succeeded as planned. In April 2016, Bryan founded the BHC Group and established his firm as a niche boutique consulting firm, providing clients with a more accessible personal approach to services as opposed to that of the large corporate consultancy firms. Over the years, Bryan has gained valuable experience in advising and supporting companies through their journey of software selection and support when looking for new systems and technology. He is supported by a team of several seasoned and experienced consultants that bring a wealth of knowledge from different industries. As like-minded business professionals, they collaborate to provide expert and innovative solutions that enable clients to achieve their technology objectives in one place. Apart from advisory roles, they are willing to roll up their sleeves and perform the services themselves to ensure the objectives are implemented successfully. With the team divided between Winnipeg and Vancouver, Bryan has expanded his company to provide both cities with a high level of expertise and innovative professional services that they are proud to offer. Without further ado, we welcome Bryan.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that introduction. Pleasure to be here today to speak to the group on ERP 101, the basic understanding of enterprise resource planning. So let's get this going here. So that's me, a CPA CMA and the principal of the BHC Group. Thanks again for the background introduction there, so I don't need to go into that myself. So we'll keep moving on. And just like Carissa, I'm going to turn off my camera just as we move through the presentation to help with the broadband experience, and then I'll turn it on at the end for any Q&A. So let me do that. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so just very quickly on the BHC and what we offer. So again, we're a niche boutique consultancy, and we offer a variety of services to help our companies and clients leverage the software and technology they own. So we do that by performing an ERP evaluation. So understanding what our clients have in place today, what they're using, what they're not, and where they want to go. We help with software selection, again, ERP related, but we can help with other types of technology as well. ERP consulting, ERP implementation support. So again, we're a seasoned of consultants, and ERP are our domain. So we know how they work, how to implement them, what that process and that life cycle looks like of the implementation. So that's where we can really help our customers. Depending on the software, we can do ERP upgrades and optimization to take advantage of any features and functions and make the system run more smoothly. Business process management. So that's a big one. We like to help our customers understand the process that they follow, how we can make improvements and not necessarily re-engineer the process, but to streamline the process for them. Data management. So when you've got data moving from one ERP system to another, we can help export the data, manage the data, and bring it into your new system. And then change management. So any project or technology change is going to require a change management from an end user perspective. How do you get buy-in from resources? How do you get executive level support? We offer services there, and anything specifically related to Microsoft Dynamics GP. That's a tier 2 ERP system, which I'll talk about the tiers in a few minutes, but that's something that I've been implementing for over 20 years now. Collectively, my team has 100 years experience with that application. So we do have legacy customers that we help on that system and then help them as they want to move to something new. So just a quick snapshot of our team. So I've got about 6 or 7 active consultants right now, split between Winnipeg and Vancouver, and we've got a bench of about 20 consultants that as we find work for them and based on their availability, then they'll perform those services and work with our team and our customers. So setting the tone for today, so what I want to hopefully get across to everyone on the call is understanding what is ERP, what are the features and benefits of ERP, what are the myths, and when do you think you'll be ready for ERP, and then how do you source and implement ERP, and then some final food for thought and some takeaways that you might want to think about and as you go through this journey of ERP. Okay, so what is ERP, right? So ERP systems help manage and automate your business through different business processes such as financials, human resources, supply chain management, manufacturing, warehousing, the list goes on. The goal of the ERP is to provide a centralized, integrated view of your organization's operations and data. So having all the information in one place has one version of the truth, and everyone can rely on that same data. The objective is to allow businesses to make informed decisions and to optimize operations. So the quicker you have access to your data, the quicker you can make decisions to then pivot and increase a particular product or decrease not order that product again, or how do you streamline things to make it quicker for your customers. The outcome of the ERP is to help manage and automate and simplify critical processes. This system allows for input and can drive workflow as part of a setup that the workflow is then reviewed and streamlined. So with the click of a button, you can have invoices sent to customers or purchase orders electronically sent to vendors versus exporting that purchase order to Excel, creating an email, then going into the email, searching for the attachment, attaching it, and then sending it manually one at a time. Again, there's a lot of manual effort involved, whereas if we have a ERP system that we can automate these critical processes, that's going to save time. Its ERP system supports all businesses, so small, medium enterprise to large private and public companies. So it's not just for the larger organizations. Depending on, and I guess this ties into the next point, the ERP systems tie into typically 3 different tiers or categories. So depending if you're small, medium enterprise, or if you're a large private or public company, that's going to depend on what tier of product you look for. So the tier 3 software, that might be something like QuickBooks Online or Simply Accounting, Wave Accounting, FreshBooks, Xero. They are generally, relatively inexpensive on a month-to-month subscription basis. Wave, for example, is free. So you can't get cheaper than that. And other ones can run from, $10, $20 to $100 a month in a subscription fee. And those are typically where small companies will start. From there, as they grow their business and those smaller systems aren't quite cutting it, that's when you look at moving to a tier 2 system. So some products that you may have heard of would be NetSuite. Microsoft have a couple products, whether it's Business Central or Great Plains or Navision. Sage products, there's Sage X3, there's Sage Intacct. They have more products as well, Sage as a vendor. There's Acumatica, Infor, they've got different products, Cispro. So all of those are sort of tier 2 systems. And those will be your more true full ERP, where you've got modules around the financials, the distribution side, the HR and payroll, supply chain or manufacturing or CRM. So that's sort of where you'll find most small, medium enterprise. And then the large organizations that are private or public, multinational, could be in hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue into billions of dollars of revenue a year. they're using tier 1 software that, some names could be JD Edwards or SAP, HANA, Workday, Microsoft has a product in there called supply chain management or finance and operations. So understanding where your business is today and where you want to be, a lot of times companies will start in that tier 3, and as they grow, move into tier 2, and as they grow even more, into tier 1. Features of ERP. So the feature, like the number one feature of an ERP system, is a centralized database. So what that means is all data sits in one database on the back end and the server, and information comes in and information comes out of that database. It makes information gathering easier. It's a relational database. So there can't be anything that doesn't fit or make sense go into the database. There has to be specific business rules that allow for data to exist. When we look at module architecture, so a lot of ERP systems are designed with different modules that allow companies to implement those modules when and if it makes sense. So typically we see companies start with the financial modules. So that would be your general ledger, your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, your bank, or checkbook, sometimes fixed assets. Then you get into your distribution type of modules. So inventory management, purchase orders, sales orders. Then sometimes with the sales order side, you see the CRM relationship as well, or customer relationship management. And so companies can decide to pick and choose what to use and when to roll it out. And also some other systems come with HR, payroll, and even more if you have field service management or warehousing. Again, different ERPs will have different industry focus, and that's when you'll want to start looking at the different modules that those ERP systems provide. And what's nice with that is you don't have to do everything at once. So you have a phased approach to bring in the functionality that you need. Integration. So an ERP system integrates all of the core processes and business functions together. So for example, sales, inventory, production, procurement, all within one system. When we talk integration, we can have as an example, we can say, all right, the buyer for a particular purchasing department, they're going to look at the inventory levels of a particular product. So you've got the buyer in the purchasing group looking at inventory in the warehouse. Then you've got a customer sales rep selling inventory products. They're looking at the inventory module in the warehouse. So as the purchaser is looking at the inventory levels, maybe the min-max quantities or what's the on hand, they can then start to buy more that the customers or the sales side can then sell. So you're getting integration between one module to the other. So the whole organization is seeing the same data. That's very beneficial and very powerful when trying to optimize your business. Customization. So some systems allow for customization. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it gives you that flexibility to tailor the system by changing core code to fit your business process. The downside is if you're planning on doing an upgrade, or if you're doing troubleshooting with a tech support person, they may not know that you have custom code or that you have something in place that's different, and that can then cause delays in troubleshooting and going through upgrades. That can also take additional time and money because you have to upgrade the custom code and then do all the testing. A workaround to customization is the term personalization. Some newer ERP systems that are cloud-based have a lot more flexibility in defining user-defined fields or setting up different process flows that can mimic your particular business. So when you're working with ERP and implementing a system, definitely speak to your vendor about how do I personalize the system without changing the core code through customization. Automation is another big one. So this is oftentimes when customers start to plan and get ready for an ERP system. This is a big driver for that. I mentioned it earlier where you can have the system automatically send out purchase orders, so you don't have to manually export out a PO or print the file, open an email, and attach it. The system can do that. Another process automation, as an example, sticking on the purchasing side, can be when a buyer is looking to see, okay, how much inventory do we have on hand, and what POs do I need to place this week in order to have enough product for my manufacturing or for my customers. So oftentimes ERP systems have a feature or a module or a function called suggest purchase orders. So when you're setting up your inventory in your warehouse, you set up your min-max levels, your reorder points, your buying quantities, who your primary and secondary vendors are, and so on. So this process called suggest POs will actually look at your inventory, see, okay, how much inventory do I have on hand? When do I need to reorder? And then what volumes do I need to reorder? You can also look at demand planning and tie in and say, okay, I'm expecting to sell X, Y, and Z over the next 3 weeks. So therefore include that in the suggest POs, and then spit out a report at the end of it and say, hey, buyer, you should buy X, Y, and Z items for ABC quantities from vendors ABC. And then with a click of a button, you can review, you can accept or reject or edit and adjust, and then hit the send button, and off those POs go to all those different vendors. So automation is very key when it comes to helping run your organization. Real-time reporting. So ERP systems are great for this. It allows for reporting, analytics, having dashboards or KPIs to, in real time, tell you how your business is doing and if there's any transactions or any steps you need to take to pivot to be more adaptable to the market. And scalability. So oftentimes, as I mentioned, companies will start when they're small, or they'll get to the next level and get into that tier 2 system. They're going to stay on that system for quite some time. So the scalability supports the growth of the business. If you're adding more resources or more users to the system, adding more modules, maybe the volume of transactions is skyrocketing. You want a system that can handle the growth of your business and can scale with you. And yeah, that's a big one, because if you think about it, if you're going to double the size of your business, you're not really going to want to double the size of your workforce. So you've got to use technology and the systems to help offset that growth. Benefits of the ERP system. So when we're looking at increasing efficiency and productivity, definitely I've given a couple examples already in how the system can increase efficiency and productivity of your business. Access to real-time data. So by data being entered into the system and posted, that access to data is there for anyone in the organization to see, granted they have the security permissions to see the data. So you may not want somebody in the warehouse looking at financial information. Security can lock down who can see what data. Enhanced visibility. So again, if you're the CFO or if you're on the finance side and you need to see across different modules, you have the ability to do that. And again, more information you have at your fingertips, the better decision-making you can make, or the quicker decision-making you can make. Better collaboration and communication. So ERP systems enable collaboration between departments and allowing access for employees to the same data to work more effectively and efficiently. So it's important that everyone's looking at the same data set and relying on that same data set. Better compliance and traceability. So ERP systems can definitely help the food industry meet various different compliance regulations, provide ease of traceability of products throughout the supply chain. So whether you need to set up lot tracking or serial tracking, if you're using inventory module, you can see the bill of materials and you can see which items make up that particular product. If someone comes to you and says, hey, this batch of product, we need to know where it went and what end products and which customers received it, very quickly you can trace that information through the system, looking for that key compliance information. And also on the accounting front too, if you're following GAAP or generally accepted accounting principles or IFRS, all the financials are tracked as well for accounting and compliance perspective and audit. Improve customer service. So again, giving employees access to that real-time data, to those customers' order history. They can look for the relevant information to service the customers better. They can see buying habits of customers. You can do specific marketing campaigns to help increase sales. Again, that's just a good way to keep growing and growing your sales side of the business. Cost saving. So an ERP, you know, as people think, it costs a lot of money to implement an ERP, which we'll talk about later as well, but there's also the cost savings, right? You can reduce waste, you can improve your inventory management, maybe move to just-in-time inventory so you don't have those carrying costs. You can optimize production. Again, by automating the system, you may not need employees to be spending their time doing data entry and looking for things. They can actually be actively working in the business versus on the systems that run the business. All of those things can help save money from the business or for the business. So myths of ERP. So again, I think people, before they jump into this, have a lot of concerns, and they're valid. And this is just through industry speak or working with their peers and hearing, oh, it's so expensive. Projects go over budget. They never get done on time. It just costs money and more money. That can happen, but that can happen with any technology change. But you know, when you look at the two expensive components, there's many ways to break that down. First, you know, the cost of not doing something can be more expensive than the cost of doing something. If you have one customer that you miss an order on, you can lose that customer for life. If you buy too much inventory that you can sell, you're sitting forever and have to put that inventory and have to sell that inventory at a loss. All those things can hurt your business pretty quickly. When we look at the cost of purchasing software, or you can have software subscriptions. So you're paying $50, $100, $200 a month per user for a particular product that you just expense every month. Or you can purchase the software and say, okay, I'm going to buy it and it's going to cost me $50,000 and I'm going to amortize that over 3 years and follow your accounting rules. When you look at government grants, there's so many out there, and we'll hear more later in the presentation on how to get funding to help with the implementation of ERP, maybe more so from the services side than the software side. But again, anything to help implement and bring your total cost of ownership down is key. And then lastly, when you're looking at the licensing costs, some vendors and products that you can look at, they charge base per user. Some base their pricing on functionality, and others even base it on usage. So again, come up with a budget and then figure out what product can fit within that budget and what licensing model works the best for you. It's too difficult to implement. Yeah, it takes time, it takes resources, but if you have a dedicated team that knows what they're doing, or they're getting help, definitely that can be taken off the table and mitigated if you do things properly. ERPs and swapping it out is going to solve all my business problems. I've heard that many times, and that's not really the case. What ends up happening is you're just swapping old technology for new technology. Your users and consumers of data then trust that new technology, think it's correct, and it's not. So what you've got to do is look at your people, your processes, and your technology. And processes play a big part into the technology change. And same thing with your resources to improve the overall business and experience that your employees will have with the system. That it's only for large companies? No, that's not the case. I would say it's even more so for small, medium enterprise, because what's going to start to happen from a cost perspective is those smaller organizations are going to say, I'm going to spend $50 a month to do my accounting. I'm going to do $30 a month to do my CRM. I'm going to spend $100 a month to do my document management. I'm going to do $50 a month to deal with my HR and payroll. I'm going to do $100 a month to deal with my reporting. And all of a sudden, you have all these disparate systems costing you money, $20, $30, $50 here, and you don't realize it until you put it all together and realize, oh my gosh, I'm spending $1,000 a month on my systems. Whereas if you had required an ERP system, that could be cut in half. So again, something to think about. So it's not just for large companies, smaller companies need to consider this as well. Systems are inflexible. So while ERP systems are designed to integrate and automate your core processes, they can be customized, as we talked about, or personalized to meet your process or your requirements. They're going to eliminate jobs. For the most part, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and it's very rare, if ever, I've ever seen employees lose their jobs because they've implemented an ERP system. It's more so the fact that instead of doing the manual data entry and spending time fixing errors and doing things manually, they now can repurpose those resources to be more efficient, looking at analyzing the data or working in another part of the business to help make it more efficient and streamline it. So you're just reallocating those resources. I've barely ever seen it where they've actually eliminated jobs. And that ERP is a one-time project. So that's just not true. Again, we'll talk about this later, but you phase in typically to be successful. You phase in modules and you phase in features and functions. So you don't just say, okay, as our go live, we're going to do everything at once. Yes, you may have a capital budget that's going to take 3 years to implement or that you're going to roll out, but you'd go live with the first piece and the second piece and the third piece. And it's just continuous improvement, whether it's upgrades or reinvesting in training or optimizing the system. It's not one time. You should plan for a little bit of budget every year to enhance and continue improving your system. So how do you know you're ready for ERP? So the number one thing I would say is growth. I mentioned it earlier. If you plan to double or triple your business in the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be very costly to double or triple your workforce, especially in different areas of the business that may even need more resources. So if you're growing rapidly and you're struggling to find the data, an ERP system is going to support you in that. If your processes are inefficient, at the end of the day, things are taking longer to get into the system. Orders are taking longer to fulfill. Maybe you're having bad supply chain issues. Again, all that inefficiency is costing time and money. If you're seeing that, you should start thinking for an ERP system if you haven't already got one in place. Disparate systems or multiple systems. Again, I spoke about that briefly earlier. Again, be careful when you start to take track or inventory all of your different technology systems or IT systems. Take a look at what you're spending every month. Add that all up. You'll be surprised, as it might be higher than you think. I know for me as a small business, when I first started, I had 5 or 6 different systems and I was spending way too much. So if you can consolidate into one system to bring the cost down from all these other systems, you may be better off. And again, by having multiple systems, you've got what we call silos of data, right? So all your inventory is in one system, your sales might be in another system, your manufacturing might be, or your bill of materials might be in another system. Again, the data can't talk to each other, and without manual effort to combine, it's going to be struggle to get all that information in one place. If you have limited visibility or access to data, that's again, we should start looking for a new system or an ERP system. Compliance requirements, if the industry is quite strict and you have to start tracking this information to meet that requirement, definitely that's going to push you into an ERP system for sure. Customer demands and vendor demands. I've seen this before where if you want to work with a particular vendor, you have to send EDI or electronic purchase requests. If you can't, they're not going to supply you with product. Customer demands, again, you may need to provide more information to your customers. They may need you to have an ERP system in order to do that. And you need to be ready to invest. So again, it's the time, it's the money, it's the resources. It's an investment. I wouldn't consider it an expense. That's not just going out and not helping your business. It's an investment that you're going to leverage for years to come. And you're going to see the payback over time. So when sourcing an ERP system, so first things you would do is assess your ERP needs. So you're going to make a list of what are your requirements? What are your nice to haves? What are your must haves? What are your, well, if it has it, that's great, but it's not a requirement. So you want to document what your needs are going to look like. And then you want to define your budget. So you may say, well, Bryan, I don't know how to define my budget. Is it $50,000 or is it $500,000? So what you can do there is you can start to reach out to different vendors, and you can create a document called Request for Information, or RFI. And we've done this a few times where you'll put your basic requirements together and you would send that to multiple vendors saying, I don't want you to bid and give me a super detailed quote, but based on what you've done for other companies in my industry, based on my requirements, you know, can you give me a ballpark? And if you send that out to 3, 4, 5 different vendors, you're going to get 5 different numbers, but it'll be interesting then to take an average or take the high or take the median as your budget that you want to work with going forward. And once you get that, then you can drill down into your details a lot more and then create what's called a request for proposal or an RFP. And you can send it back to those vendors and say, now here's all the specifics. Give me a firm quote on what this is going to look like versus a generic high level ballpark. And also keep in mind with the budget that it's not just the software and implementation. You may need to hire new resources or employees. You may need to hire an external project manager, for example. You want to make sure that you're looking at the total cost of this thing, not just how much does it cost for the service and the vendor's implementation. And keep in mind too, if you're doing, say, barcoding or scanning and having third-party systems that are tying in, again, that may have 2 or 3 different vendors with 3 different prices that you put together to then come up with your overall technology or ERP budget. Research vendors. So, you know, a lot of vendors will say, yeah, we can help you. So find out who they are, find out their industry domain experience, find out, you know, when was the last time they did a project of your size, find out, can they handle your type of implementation? Do you think it's quite large? Do you think it's quite small? They may say no. So you just got to look at, you know, who might be a good fit for you in the marketplace. And then you want to evaluate demos of the software and references. So you may say, hey, vendor, you know, come in and just give me the basic demo, or you go to like the nth degree and you create a demo script and say, follow steps, you know, 1 to Z or A to Z. But yeah, take a look at the software, ask for references, speak to those references, and see how they can provide information to you that's meaningful in making your decision. Conduct due diligence. So once you've identified a vendor and a solution, you know, dig a little deeper, see if they'll provide financial information to see how stable they are, find out if they're compliant with any relevant regulatory government agencies. Just dig a little deeper on them if you can, or ask for additional references, just to make sure that this business is not going to go out of business while you're halfway through your implementation. And negotiate contract terms. You know, some big vendors like Microsoft or Oracle or SAP is like, yeah, you can't negotiate the terms of the software, but when it comes to the vendor implementing that software, there's oftentimes you can negotiate terms, whether you need, you know, 45 days for paying an invoice versus their standard 30, or when you're going through the implementation, are they charging you on a time and materials basis, or are they charging you on a fixed fee basis, or are they charging you on like milestone payments? So every month you have to pay. So again, some of that you can maybe negotiate to be favorable or meet your needs. And plan for implementation. So this is a big one, right? You know, I think of 80-20 rule here. So planning, I think, is 80% and 20% is execution. If you've got a good plan, you know what you're doing, when it's happening, who's doing what, and you've got the right people, I think the execution of working through it actually is not that bad. And you want to ensure that you've got executive stakeholders who have bought into the plan to make sure that they can help clear any roadblocks and support it. And you also want to consider like your busy periods and when key staff may be on vacation. So a lot to come in when you're thinking about planning for the ERP. So implementing ERP. So define your goals and objectives. So at the beginning of the project, you wanna think about what does it mean to be successful when we're completed. And sometimes what can happen is customers can think of success criteria. And so a vendor will say, give me your 5 top things that define success, or your top 10 things that define success. Way too many times I've heard companies say, oh, I want better reporting or quicker access to information. Well, what does better reporting mean, right? I want to increase my sales. Okay, by what? Or I want to cut down and streamline closing my month end from an accounting perspective. Okay, great. So you need to document what is the metric today. So it takes me 10 days to close my books. Okay, my goal is to cut that down to 7. I want better reporting. Well, what does that mean? That means I want to be able to get a sales analysis report every Monday on my desk by 8 o'clock. So define what those look like. So then at the end of the project, and say 6 months after, 12 months after, you can run that benefits realization, as we call it, to then say, hey, are we realizing the benefit? Are we meeting our goals and objectives, and were we successful? Create a detailed plan. So this is a good one that ties into your implementation plan. And part of that can be, I need a communications plan, a risk management plan, a rollout plan, a responsibilities plan. So there's lots of plans that fit inside of an implementation plan from a project management perspective. But by doing that, you're going to be ready for anything that comes at you. Involve stakeholders. So again, you want to have people from different departments maybe being involved and creating what's called a steering committee. So you may have someone from finance and IT and from the warehouse and from procurement and from sales and from the manufacturing. All those different individuals are going to have a different stake in the success of the implementation. So you want to bring them all together so they're all being updated at the same time and can collaborate and work as a team to move through the project. And typically they may meet, depending on the length of the project, every, maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the project. That's not a weekly thing for a steering committee meeting, but you'll have a project team meeting that you might meet every week or multiple times a week that are more hands-on to the project. Establish a dedicated team. So as I said there, that team will meet more frequently. They're the ones working with the vendor. They're the ones hands-on with the implementation, doing the setup, testing the system, making sure things are moving through accordingly. And yes, test the system thoroughly. So, test, and test again is the philosophy. The last thing you want to do is have end users go live with the system, and the first time they do something, it fails or they get an error message. Excuse me. You really want to make sure that you test the system before it goes to the next level. There's also what's called user acceptance testing. So this is a good system test to make sure that the system's set up correctly, the security for those users are set up correctly, and that those key end users or subject matter expert users know what they're doing so then they can help the rest of the team accordingly. So test. Provide training and support. So this is an area where you don't want to skimp on. You want to make sure people get trained and they have support. So if something happens, they know who to go to directly. This can include creating training manuals or having standard operating procedures. I've even seen it where there's training videos. So we'll do a session and you'll record the session through Teams or Zoom that new employees and periodically people can go back and watch. Sometimes that's easier than going through a user guide. That's user preference at that point. Or if you say every month I'm going to bring the vendor in for an hour to do a Q&A session with all my users. So bring all your questions and let's train. And then monitor and review progress. So as you're going through, you're going to be having status reports. You're going to be meeting as a group. You want to make sure that the project is moving on pace and it's not being too slow, because what can happen is if you start slowing down and it's not going as quickly, users can lose interest and vendors can end up spending more money, which will eat the budget to then now all of a sudden, when you get closer towards the end, that could be an issue. So as we move into sort of the final food for thought slide here, at the end of the day, you want to start with a clear understanding of your requirements. What do you need the system to do? Why do you need the system to do it? What are your nice to have? What are your must have? What are those requirements? And then what are the things that, yeah, I could take advantage of that, or I could use that, but it's not critical. And that can even help separate different products when you're looking, because a lot of products do the same thing, right? So you're looking for that uniqueness with one of those products that's going to be the right fit for you. So understanding your requirements and what you're looking for is key. Assess your IT infrastructure. So talk to your IT department if you have one, and find out, how many servers do we have? What versions of software, what's the Windows version? What's the SQL version? You need to, at some point, have a good understanding of what's in place today, because that's going to make decisions on how you implement or A, what products you pick, and then B, how it's going to affect your existing environment. So if you're saying, I don't want to do anything on premise, I don't have an IT department, I have one person who helps me here and there, then a subscription-based software as a service product is perfect. You pay X dollars per month, it's on the cloud, you don't have to worry about upgrades and troubleshooting, it's taken care of for you. If you're more, no, I've got 3 people on IT, we have a server rack, I want the software on premise, I want to manage it, then great, everybody's different. And so understanding what you have in place, if that's your case, make sure you know what's there. Because you may have to do upgrades or get a new server or upgrade your licensing, and all of a sudden upgrading, say, a SQL Server license can cost you $10,000 that you didn't budget or plan for, and now what do you do? So know what you have in advance. Define the scope. So again, this goes back to your requirements, but understand what is the scope. So are you going to go big bang and try and do everything at once, or are you going to roll out different modules as you go? Make sure once you've defined the scope and the plan that everybody knows what's happening. There's a term called scope creep, and that's a project killer, because what that does is you're going through the training and you're working with the vendor, and then someone in the session says, oh, what does that do? And then all of a sudden the vendor tells you, like, oh, we like that, let's do that. And if you do that too many times, you're going that wasn't in scope, aka budgeted for, you're going to spend a lot more money that you didn't plan to spend, right? So make sure you know what your scope is. And if something looks like it's going to add value or work for you, and you're like, yeah, we should do this now, it makes sense, and you didn't know that when you developed the budget and the scope, you can create change orders or change requests. Excuse me. So that then allows that to become in scope. You get a budget approved, it goes to the steering committee, the sponsor says, yes, let's do it. Or what happens is you say, you know what, we like it, but we're not going to do it right now. We're going to put that in what's called the parking lot list, or a parking lot. So keep track of it. And then you can, once this project is done, you can see how the budget ended up. And if there's a bit of leftover, or the stakeholders or sponsors see there's value in it, you can do that as a phase 2 or a phase 3 and do it later. So know the scope and define it. Create a budget if possible, and even a return on investment plan. So that plan may even come in as a business case to getting the new ERP software. But at the end of the day, you can get a budget, as I mentioned, by doing an RFI or speaking to a company that can help get you this information and say, okay, generally speaking, you're going to need X dollars. The return on investment plan says, okay, if I'm going to spend X dollars, how is this going to save me money? And maybe there's a payback calculation you can do and say, in 2.5 years, this is going to pay for itself. Understand the numbers, if you will. Involve your team. So again, from getting end user buy-in and having success with people using the new system. Oh, excuse me, put the water here. You can involve your team early on, right? So they may be part of documenting the requirements. They may be part of documenting the processes. They may be in the meeting saying why you should get a new system. Just keep them on board as much as possible, and even have them part of the demo so they can see what that new system might look like. It's key to get people involved as early on as possible. And from a change management perspective, we can even call these people like change agents. Excuse me. They are the ones that want the change, and they can work with the resources that don't necessarily want the change and help them convince them why it's a good thing. So get people involved early. Look for an experienced vendor. So if you can, you want to try and find someone that's worked in your industry before. They've been around for a while. They've got the right consultants. they understand the domain or your specific industry domain, so therefore they can offer a little bit more value added. Oh, you should do this because of why, where you may not have thought of that. So experienced vendors are nice to, are pretty important. I wouldn't even say nice to have. I'd say that they're pretty important. And beware of customization. So at the end of the day, you know, as I mentioned before, customization can be great in the short term, but over time can actually hinder your business through upgrades or adding in new features or integrating data from another system in that may cause an issue. And then from troubleshooting perspective, you know, the technicians may not be able to support you or in a timely manner because they don't know you have something custom. At the end of the day, ask for personalization options. How do we personalize and tailor the system based on the way it's built to allow us to do that versus changing core code? And be prepared for change, right? If it's coming, it's going to happen. I've seen so many times where there's, you know, employees that have been in the company 10, 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden, you know, you're using a green screen DOS system, and now you're putting in a new cloud-based, Windows-based system that you need a mouse and a keyboard for. That's change, right? People need to adapt and be open to the change and be ready for it. It's going to come, right? People are used to doing things a certain way. You want to make sure that they've got the tools and the support to change. And, you know, adopt a mantra or something along the lines of continuous improvement. I think at the end of the day, working with ERP, the ones that are the most successful with it are always trying to find ways to continuously improve, make the system more efficient, get their users trained, look for ways to streamline their processes by using the system. That's key in my mind. You're going to pay for something, so why not try and get as much out of it as you can? All right, I think, yeah, so our last slide here just as the presentation summary. So what we looked at today is we talked about what is ERP, what are some of the features and benefits of ERP, what are the myths, and am I ready for ERP, or how do you know when you're ready for ERP? How to go about sourcing and implementing the ERP, and then just my final comments over the years on, you know, food for thought to the group. So I hope that was beneficial. I hope you learned something there, and we've got some time for Q&A, I think 10, 15 minutes. So happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thanks, Bryan. That was a lot of information there.
Yeah, and I can provide I'm sure they'll get the slide deck, or I can send over, or they'll have some access to the information if they didn't get it all down.
Yes, we are recording, so we will send this out to everyone once we have it ready to go.
Perfect.
There's many benefits to using the ERP system for food processors, as I'm kind of seeing. It can help introduce new products to markets faster and cheaper than your competitors. It can ensure compliance to food safety regulations. It can help control costs through reduced wastage, optimum material utilization, and inventory management. It could help achieve end-to-end bi-directional traceability from the raw material down through the finished product. It can help improve operational efficiency of your manufacturing process. It also can help to have complete control of your business by accessing real-time data of production, sales, and distribution. And I can see it as a tool to forecast sales and orders, converting orders into production plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a great tie-in with ERP to our food processing businesses. Is there any questions from anybody? Bryan, I think this is a fairly new kind of material to our food processors.
Okay.
We are going to encourage it for them to keep control of their plans. And I do see that there is a hand up. Amanda, what is your question?
Hi, good morning. This is all very interesting. I'm curious about, so inventory management was presented to me a couple of years ago in creating a system, but this is bigger than inventory management, right?
Yes, the ERP system will have an inventory management component to it. But yes, it has inventory, but it's larger than just a standalone inventory system.
And so what do they cost? Like, what is the cost generally?
Yeah, well, that's a tricky one to answer, right? Because as I said before, the licensing for ERP systems can vary depending on the software based on the user count. You know, do you have 2 users using it or 200 users? The different complexity levels. So, you know, I would find it very hard to just give out a number because it can vary so much. But if you're
so
in
I'm a small business.
Okay.
And we have 6 people on staff, and I'm not sure that all of us would need access to it.
Okay.
And like we do all of our own distribution. We currently use QuickBooks Online, and we're considering getting a CRM like Method, which is a pay per user tie-in to QuickBooks for that. So like in comparison to that, those 2 systems, plus I use like, the only thing I didn't notice on there was like a POS option. So like if we have customers that are direct, we would still have to have a separate POS system, correct?
No, so oftentimes these systems will have a point of sale component to it. So there's counter sales, or it can just be online sales. So yeah, there's different systems that'll have those modules, or it may be a third-party product that, again, so you would probably fit into like the tier 2 level. So if you're on the QuickBooks Online and you're growing, and you need something more robust, those tier 2 levels will have those main modules you need, but they may have a third-party product that's sort of what we call best of breed. So it'll have something that's the best product for point of sale or counter sales or e-commerce, that type of thing. Yeah, so it's, you know, I don't want to give out a number. You know, it's probably going to be, you know, software and services. You know, it could be that, you know, $40,000 to $100,000 range, maybe. You know, so there is a bit of a
for
cost.
starting out. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
because what's going to happen is you're going to buy the software, right? So let's say the software, even on a higher end system, could be, you know, like $200 a month per user, right? So that's, if you have 5 people, say it's $1,000 a month. So that's one component to it. But then you're going to have the implementation of that software. So it's not like plug and play like QuickBooks, right? You load QuickBooks, it's all there. With these systems, you have to create a chart of accounts. You have to create a vendors listing. You have to do all these setups and configuration. And how is my system going to run through this? Well, if you've got your warehouse and your inventory, you're going to say, okay, what are my item numbers? What's my bill of materials? What are all my, you know, vendor specific information? So the person or the vendor implementing are going to ask you all of these questions, and they're typically charging you per hour or, you know, a flat fee to go about doing an analysis and design. Then there's the configuration. Then there's like the deployment and the training and the testing. And then there's like the go live and then all the reporting that sits on top. So again, I've seen projects where, you know, maybe you're at 100 hours of service, you know, and up, like maybe 120, 100 to 200 hours, you know, and most vendors are now in that $200 an hour range. So, you know, if you said conservatively 150-hour project at $200 an hour, so that's $30,000 in services right there. So that's where it's going to be the most expensive. But again, those are, you know, the upfront, get it done. And then on a go forward basis, you know, if your subscription is $1,000 a month for 5 users, that's pretty doable, I think, for most organizations. And what you'll hear after, I don't know if it's directly after me or at the end, about getting government grants to help offset those implementation services. So I don't want to scare you and say it's, you know, $100,000 or $50,000, but just think of some context of you need a partner who's going to come in, understand your business, ask you all these questions, and then go and set up the system, help test the system, get it going live. That's where you're going to spend the most money up front. Does that answer your question or give you some guidance there, I hope?
Yeah, well, if that's how much it costs and those are all the other things, I'm just wondering, like, it's not able to pull from my current systems, the data, it all has to be re-entered?
No, so there's a data migration piece. So if you're saying I'm going to move off of QuickBooks and get into, you know, a different type of ERP system, all that data can be exported. But in some cases, like with QuickBooks, I use QuickBooks Online for some stuff. And like for my vendors, for example, I just call it, you know, Bryan Hack as a vendor, for example. In a system, there's going to be a vendor ID. So it may be like BHack001, and then there's the name, the address, all the buying information that's associated that you may not have in your current system. Maybe you want to do electronic fund transfers, so you have to get banking information for vendors. So, you know, there's a little bit more than what you have today that'll be required or could be useful for you in the new system. And at the same time, too, if you're doing a change, now is the time to look holistically at your organization and say, okay, well, in QuickBooks, I've got a one segment chart of accounts, as they call it, right? You have a main account, call it, you know, 4,000 is sales and 5,000 is cost of goods sold and 1,200 is inventory. Well, in a new system, you create segments or have dimensions. And the dimensions could be the main account, maybe a location, maybe a department, maybe a region, maybe a customer type. That's very important. So all of a sudden, there's new things that you don't have today that you can have and should have that the vendor is going to walk you through. But you're right. You can hit export, get your inventory list, do a bunch of cleanup on it, and then hit import and import it into the new system. But there is setup information that will be required. So another example is inventory. You can create different inventory classes or inventory groups, which you may or may not have in say, QuickBooks, or you have it in an Excel spreadsheet if you're tracking that today. You can have warehouses, you can have locations, you can have bins. Again, I don't know your entire organization, but at the end of the day, those key setup fields or values have to be in this table. So when you import the data, it validates against something that exists. And oftentimes I see that in data conversion. You can't upload something if the master record isn't there.
Okay, that's cool. Is there like any like thresholds, right? Because you're saying like we all operate out of one location. We do all of our own distribution. You know, we're under 500,000 in sales a year. Like, where is there like a threshold that's like, oh, okay, there's some like just markers that maybe you should consider this option? Like, I think it's a little bit too much for what we have. But after your comment about like, look at how much you're paying for QuickBooks, look how much I'm paying for Method, look how much I'm paying for my POS system, right? And kind of put it together. Are there any markers like that as a business owner I should just kind of like keep my pulse on?
I would just say, you know, yeah, I don't want to say like you need to be at $1 million in sales to then, you know, look at an ERP system. I think it's all those other factors, right? How efficient do you think you are? Because it does come with an upfront cost, right? The implementation cost is what's going to get you. So once you hear later on about if you qualify for the Canadian Digital Adoption Program and you can get funding, that can help cover a lot of that. So I would say, you know, look at those systems, say, okay, realistically, I'm spending $800 a month, or, you know, maybe it's $300 a month. You know, you just need to do a little bit more research with the different products and vendors to find out if I move to your system, that's going to give me all these great features and benefits. How much is that going to cost me a month? And then do that cost analysis. And then the implementation cost is just going to be, you know, a one-time thing just to get you up and running. And then from there, it's a small maintenance fee every month, perhaps, or that continuous improvement. So I'm just hesitant to say, yeah, at this point, you should move. There's just so many other factors, and happy to have a conversation after this as well if you would like. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. We have another question here. How reliable are ERP systems in terms of cybersecurity, system crashes, and things like that?
Yeah, so they're very reliable. You know, especially if it's cloud-based. So, you know, if you're dealing with Microsoft or NetSuite or Oracle, all those companies have all the proper legislation in place. They've got all of the backups and restores, all the fail-safe overs, like if the internet goes down, you know, that's stored somewhere else. So from that perspective, you're super safe on the data side with those massive vendors. The downside is if you have a subscription-based service and you're maybe more in a rural area and your internet goes down, then that may be a bit tricky because you can't connect to your system. But if you have a backup internet connection, so if one provider goes down, you switch over to the other, then you're up and running, then you're fine. If you look at having your data sit on your own servers, that's a little different story. I have had customers that have been hacked with ransomware, where someone's going to hack into their server, lock their data, and all of a sudden you can't get to it anymore. That's a little trickier because now you need a little bit more of training on users about phishing emails and clicking on links that they shouldn't. So, you got to work with your IT department on that. But as far as security, safety of the data in the cloud, it's pretty solid. I wouldn't worry about that one. It's more on premise that you have to be concerned about.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I think that's all that I have right now. Oh, we have one more
I have
question.
one, if I may.
Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, I see, like, one of the, I guess as a funder of this, working for Manitoba Agriculture, one of the opportunities I envision for companies being able to exploit, hopefully, and I guess I've seen this in walking larger facilities, so I'm not sure to the extent of how much scale is required to do this, but I'm thinking like a process flow on the processing floor, in terms of raw materials in at one stage, the mixing stage, the cutting stages, the baking stages, whatever, like through that. Is that something that is, I guess I'm wondering, Bryan, is what scale do you see is necessary before someone is able to think about those sort of things, and is it fairly doable in terms of the machinery that's out there these days?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, again, it's a tough one, right? I think if internally the project team or the resources and the company can go through and document that process and look at the workflow and the operations as it moves from stage to stage, that's good to have a basic understanding from that perspective, because that's going to then drive the work centers and the route when you put that into your system. So at some point it has to occur. But like from a technology perspective, I don't think there's so Jeff, is it more around what technology to help document that, or is it more at what level should you document that?
Yeah, I guess it'd be in terms of how easy or how difficult is it to actually integrate different components in a process and get them talking to each other.
Yeah, okay.
Probably it depends, I imagine.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I did it wasn't food related, but just as an experience that I can relate to with kitchen cabinet manufacturer, right? So they manufacture kitchen cabinets. So you go onto the shop floor, I guess the first stage is they'll create the order, it'll go through a CAD design, the bill of materials will get pushed out, and it'll go to the first stage, and then the first person starts the process. So the system that you will look at will have a more manufacturing focus than more, say, like an accounting or distribution focus. You want to find a system that's good for manufacturing. So it's going to have all the work centers and the routes, and the bill of materials is going to push in to say, take 3 of these and 6 of those and 2 of those, and help you. It's going to do that for you and move the product along the cycle. So as you go from computer machine to the next one, it's going to do that for you. I think that's just inherent in some of those manufacturing systems for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Well, I'm available for any further questions. If you think of something after the session, please feel free to reach out to me directly or through Karen and the team, and they can pass on the information as well.
All right. Well, it sounds like we could probably move on then. So I'm going to turn on my screen and just get to there. Thank you very much, Bryan. That was excellent.
Thanks, Jeff.
And I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you're seeing a new title page here. And what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about putting ERP to work. And
it's not,
we have with
your screen's not up there. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
While you're getting that though, Karen, there has been another question that has come in there.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, yeah.
I do see that. Well, I guess while we're waiting, Bryan, one more question. Are you able to integrate two disparate parts of your business, like a manufacturing facility and retail location?
Yes, you can. So in some of those tier 2 applications, they've got different modules. So you'll set up a retail component and the manufacturing. So yes, definitely the system can handle all of that within one system.
Great. Yes, Jeff, this worked yesterday, but our screen isn't popping up quite yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing. I think when I toggled it this morning, that seemed to do the trick. So let's try again.
Still nothing?
Oh, dear. Okay. Well, that's okay. We can move on. It's just words on the screen here. So, Karen, do you have an introduction for Brent McMillan?
I just wanted to say that Brent McMillan is the Chief Operating Officer of Manitoba Starch Products, and he is going to answer some of the questions that Jeff has in regards to ERP systems. They have successfully implemented such a system, and he will guide us on his experience.
Excellent. All right. Well,
It's showing now, Jeff.
Hey, there we go. Excellent. All right. Okay. Well, let's get started then. Brent, hoping you're there.
You bet.
Excellent. Thank you. Kara, first question is, can you please tell us about Manitoba Starch Products and how it uses ERP?
Sure. My first comment, I guess, would be to add a little codicil to Karen's comments there. Successfully implemented an ERP system, successful till now. It's as Bryan indicated in his presentation, a very good presentation, by the way, Bryan, very accurate on the details and the process. It's a consistent work in progress. There's always things to do. So Manitoba Starch. We are Canada's only food grade potato starch manufacturer. We're actually one of two in North America. What we do is make potato starch. We collect it from the French fry manufacturing industry and the chipping industry, as it's called, the potato chip manufacturers like Frito-Lay, Old Dutch. As part of their process, potato starch is created, I guess, for lack of a better word, released from the potato when they are cutting their French fries and potato chips, and we capture that byproduct. So we are upcycled certified. We are a very green business, as they say, because we are capturing a product that was at one point in time headed to the waste stream and created a lot of expense and issues for those manufacturers. We've been in business for 20 plus years. We have been using an ERP system since 2016. Well, our ERP system, we are basically, again, as Bryan said in his presentation, we had several different software systems that we were using across our business, everything from production to warehousing, quality control, finance, all of those things. And again, required a lot of data reentry from program to program, which in turn created many opportunities for errors. In theory, your ERP system allows you to tie it all together and helps you to eliminate that issue. Again, I say that in theory, the key is having it set up properly and making sure it works properly. But that's really, we use ERP from soup to nuts, beginning to end. It manages our ordering process, our customers, our QA, finance, it's all tied in there together. So.
Okay, excellent. I think you may have answered this already, but I'm just curious, was there any particular impetus that really got you interested in investigating and ultimately adopting an ERP system?
Part of it,
you kind of alluded to it.
Yeah, as above, as I said for the previous question, tying it all together and making it easier. We were looking towards some substantial growth and trying to advance our business, knowing that we were the only player in Canada and there was a lot of opportunity for expansion and growth. So we really wanted to take care of cleaning up the inefficient process that we had right at that time.
Sure.
With everything due to data management across the programs, the growth, the compliance issues, just basically all of the items that Bryan touched on in his "Are you ready for an ERP program" page. That was us. We went through that process and identified the need for these areas to be tied together for more efficiency.
Okay. Excellent. You're doing a great job of pre-answering the questions here. So you mentioned a bunch of processes, and I guess further to my question to Bryan, did that include at some point even the production processes, like on the processing floor?
Yeah, when you look at an ERP system, there's many different functions to it. We use a program or an ERP system called Epicor. It's not a well-known one, more so SAP. People are more familiar maybe with SAP, some of those. But it involves everything: sales management, service management, production, material flows, finances. There's even an executive analysis component for all of your reporting and financials, and you can really tailor it to, and all ERP systems are the same. You can tailor it to fit your needs. The key, like I say, we basically have integrated all of those programs. The one I would say that we are a little light on using because of the nature of our business is the sales management one. We really don't use the CRM module
Sure.
because of our business. I mean, we are a food manufacturing business or a food manufacturing company, but we are dealing probably with a lot of businesses that are similar to those that are on this call. We are a B2B company. We're not a B2C. So we don't have the end consumer as our customer. We're selling our product to somebody who's using it to make their products, which are being sold to the customer. So our customer base is relatively small in direct relation. We have a couple of distributors in Canada who then deal with 100+ customers each on their side, so that our CRM module doesn't need to be as evolved.
Right.
But the rest of it is, I mean, order entry, shipping, receiving, production, finance, quality, pretty much everything else that's involved in your business. We are using those aspects of the ERP system to run our business. Okay,
excellent. That kind of makes me wonder, just as an auxiliary question here to that is, of course, when you've got an integrated software, you're going to be using what they think is the best version of CRM, what they think is the best version of purchasing, and what they think is the best version of inventory management. Did you find that you had to settle or adapt yourselves to that in any fashion, or did you find that this one whole bundle from Epicor was, as an example, was pretty well suited to your needs?
Yeah, generally speaking, I would say any ERP system is the same. That's kind of a general phrase. They're all the same.
Okay.
Certain ones have certain benefits, features that Epicor offered us some things that we were looking for that maybe the others didn't. Part of ours choice to go with Epicor was flexibility in the production model, or production model, I should say. Our business is different than anybody else's, and in all honesty, it was a real struggle for the Epicor team to get their head wrapped around the way our production process works.
Interesting.
Most businesses have, and Bryan again alluded to this in his presentation, you get your customer order, you put it into the system, it flows through, it hits your pre-planning stage if there's a design component required. It comes out and goes to production, it's made, it's entered into inventory, it's shipped, sold, invoiced, etc. Our system, or our production process is backwards. We have what are called take or pay contracts with our suppliers, and our suppliers provide us with whatever product they produce in a given day. We do daily pickups with our suppliers in Manitoba and process based on what they supply. So it's kind of a reverse engineered system. Instead of having a customer order that you're manufacturing for, we manufacture based on our inputs, put it into inventory, and then sell what the customer needs. So it was a struggle that way. But again, the flexibility of the program is what it is. And generally speaking, when you're talking about order entry, production, warehousing, invoicing, it's the same in every business. Yeah, you may have to tweak the way you do it a little bit, which we did because we were using we were using different systems and you had to bring it all into one. So there was some limitations, but customization is an option. But again, like Bryan said, be careful how much you do. So
yeah, okay, very interesting. All right, let's move on. You've alluded to this a bit. I guess part of what I'm thinking about in terms of a difficult process, and I think there's some other questions coming just insofar as staff involvement or, but yeah, just just in terms of, was it a difficult process to implement? Was it just terribly disruptive to your business?
Short answer is yes, it was difficult. Can't I guess upplay enough the comments again Bryan made. Get a team, get a dedicated team. Amanda's comment of you were 6 people, then everybody needs to be involved. You need to have representation from every department on your team. They need to be involved from front to back. The more time you spend analyzing your situation, selecting the appropriate, and making sure you understand what you need, doing all of the data cleansing, as Bryan was talking about, when you're doing your data upload in response to Amanda's question again, it's a huge step. I can't intimate enough how important the pre-planning stages are. The more of that you do, the easier the rest of the process becomes. But yeah, it's big, it's busy, it takes a lot of time. And at the time of switchover, it is disruptive. You need to plan. You need to plan for the implementation days well in advance, because in reality, you're going to want to do duplication. You're going to want to enter everything in your old system and your new system and make sure your financials flow through. And at the end of the day, you're going to be comparing your old system, let's say your balance sheet, your income statement, your trial balance again. You're going to want to inventory balances, all of those things. You're going to want to compare your old system to your new to make sure that the ERP system is matching what your previous system did.
Right.
So it
makes sense.
It's a huge time component, but again, the more time and planning invested, the easier it is.
Yeah. So in terms of implementing that at Manitoba Starch and having that duplication, was like that extra time component, basically doing the work twice, did that require a lot of staff overtime, a lot of
it required some. What it everyone required, Jeff, was some just planning on our part, right? Getting everything in advance, ready to go, and say, hey guys, you're going to be needing to do twice the work, so you're going to need to get either push off the mundane things that can wait, or, you know, stay on top of things.
Yeah.
In all honesty, we spent a great deal of time, like weeks, weeks getting ready for the install.
Sure.
We thought we were well prepared. Bryan mentioned kind of an 80-20 rule. I would recommend a 90-10 rule. Spend way more time in advance than you think you need. We thought we were doing great, and at the end of the day, it felt like we did 20-80 after the install happened. There's it's a lot of work. It is.
Yeah.
It's worth it. In the end, I'm not trying to scare everybody away. Just prepared that it is a challenge. It's a lot of work, but it was worth it. So, I mean, there was issues. Some of them were specific to our process, as I mentioned before. Trying to understand production was a challenge. That's the finance is finance. Shipping and receiving is the same. Order entry is the same.
Yeah.
Across businesses. Our production process was the challenge, and making sure that your parts list to create the job that's going to make your widget that you're going to sell to your customer, that is
right.
That's one of the biggest parts, the most important parts, and making sure that you have proper valuations in your system for what all of the bits and pieces cost to make up your widget, because that flows it all the way through your ERP system from a financial perspective, impacting your raw material inventory, impacting your cost of goods, your finished goods inventory, and your final financials, your profit at the end of the day. So
sure, absolutely. Your response triggered another thought with me, Brent, in terms of traceability. And of course, your traceability is probably pretty straightforward insofar as it's from this potato plant or that potato plant. But is that something you were able to integrate as well with the adoption of ERP?
Yes, yeah, we actually, as I said, we have a very small customer base, but those customers, our customers' products are sold all over North America. Yeah. So if you have an end retailer, something people may not know, potato starch is used in the shredded cheese industry. So as an example, if you buy a bag of shredded cheese at your local grocery store, that very opaque white substance on the outside of the cheese is potato starch. It keeps it from
isn't that something?
Yeah. So for instance, so we can do a recall inside of 24 hours, regardless of where that cheese was bought. If it has our starch on it, we know exactly where the input material for that starch came from, and we can have a response. We have our testing results. Within 24 hours, we can provide a response to say, hey, your contamination couldn't be a result of our input because of these factors. Like if there was a salmonella issue with cheese, well, it couldn't have come from us because here's our test results from the lot that you used to make that product.
Oh, isn't that interesting? So that could be a real money saver, because if you didn't have that and the blame game was going around and everyone else, you were the only one who wasn't able to substantiate your traceability, and then what do you do, right? You would get dinged.
You better have a good insurer.
Yeah, that's a really interesting.
You better have good recall insurance, is what I meant to say.
Yes.
Recalling your product isn't that expensive. Recalling your customers' products becomes immensely expensive.
Oh yeah, absolutely, because the cost is just multiplied exponentially. Wow. We kind of alluded to this already, just insofar as staff time requirement. But I'm kind of wondering from the service provider end of things, like, did they spend a lot of time on site with the implementation? Did they help with a lot of you mentioned about the data transfer piece, and I guess hoping they were there step by step with you and your team as you went through the implementation and testing?
Yeah, definitely. The service provider was there, and I would hazard a guess to say all service providers would be the same. We had two primary contacts from the service provider. One was specialized in ops, so everything from production, inventory management, warehousing, QA was a bit of a challenge for the individual. His field of study, so to speak, was on the strictly ops side. Everything from bringing in your raw materials to pushing out your finished goods.
Sure.
We had another individual then who worked on the financial side of it. So they kind of worked a little bit together on order entry, those types of things, but the financial component of everything, how it flowed through the system, they had a finance specialist who worked with us on that side of it, making sure the costs associated with product flows through your program or through your company appeared and moved properly through the financial statements. So
interesting.
They did a lot of work leading up, and again, the data upload, your customer database, your part database, all of anything you can think of that you need in your ERP system.
Yeah.
They were there and said, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, have you thought about that? And helped you through building the data upload for the in advance of, and they actually did some testing and said, hey, you know what, you need to do this, you need to do that. It was all the for those of you that are familiar with spreadsheets, it was a CSV spreadsheet, so comma separated values.
Yes.
It just pushed up into the system. So
sure,
they were here. That was in advance of install. Then they were here when the install happened. They were here for about a period of a week. One comment I would have is push back on your supplier, on the service provider, and get them back on site again later. Get them to come back in. You're going to have glitches. You're going to have bumps. You're going to have bugs in the system. Get them back and with technology. I mean, we can do a lot of things on Teams and Zoom as we are doing now, but just said having them on site so you can lead them through the process and they can lead you through the process,
right,
so to speak.
So it sounds like there's probably some value there to either having that as a condition in your agreement with them, and perhaps even with having someone, if possible, who's local, a little more local than
a little more local is a benefit for sure. Another thing I would talk to, I guess, with the staff time requirement, we found it we have found since, we didn't do a very good job of it when we were doing the install. A lot of benefit in having your production team involved in the discussions around the finance side of production.
Interesting.
We don't, like, our production people aren't necessarily involved in the finance side, but to give them an understanding on changes or things that they do and how it impacts and flows through the financials. They don't need to have a CPA designation or anything like that. They just understand that what they do impacts other departments, and they may not think of it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like it's really valuable to have the varying perspectives. And when you mentioned about the vendors saying, hey, have you thought about this? It made me think of something I say to clients, and that's you don't know what you don't know, right?
Exactly.
Because it's not your field, and that, that's okay. You're learning, you're new to this. So and there really are no dumb questions either, because and ask every question you have, whether you think they're dumb or not, because ultimately it probably will be pretty valuable to know that.
Yeah, and one other, I guess, comment I would make on the whole installation or staff time required. We're fortunate enough that we have in-house IT.
Okay.
Having your IT person, we have a person, not a team, we have a person, but having that person involved in this is key for minor tweaks to the system later, minor customizations, because most of or at least our service provider, we can make customizations to the system ourselves.
Oh, okay.
When it comes to little bits of process change, we can set up our own jobs, we can adjust our own jobs, all of those things. So.
Oh, interesting. Well, so even if a person didn't have their own in-house IT person or department, even if they had someone or had someone they could contract on on a job basis to do those little patches, it could probably be quicker and maybe more cost effective than getting the vendor back, eh?
Right. Well, and the key for, I mean, the vendors all provide this service, but it's on a,
Sure.
and again, we can contact our supplier and it gets queued up and they do the work for you if you need to. But from a responsiveness perspective, having somebody who knows what they're doing internally,
Yeah.
things are a lot faster.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. I think we answered this one just back with that traceability question in terms of, how that could be worth it. But obviously, from what I'm hearing from you, Brent, is that despite all the effort, all the work, all the time, and whatever cost was involved, it sounds like it ultimately was worth the time and effort.
Yeah, it was. I say that a little tongue in cheek. I mean, some days you're asking yourself, was it worth it when you're pulling your hair out? But now that we're,
Of course,
now that we're 7 years down the road, yeah, it is. It's
now past to being fond memories.
Yeah, still saying what Bryan talked about, the continual upgrading, those types of things. There's always change. There's always improvement. One comment I would have, Quinn had, or sorry, not Quinn, it was an answer to Joel's question.
Oh,
on
yes.
the cybersecurity side of it. We had the program stored on site on our servers to begin with.
Okay.
Which was good and bad. When it comes to updates, automatic updates, it means you have to bring your IT person, right? Whoever you use for that service, or whether it's an employee, you have to do those yourself. And sometimes an update would adversely affect customizations you'd made in the system.
Oh, of course.
So we, in the last year and a half, switched to cloud-based, and because our supplier is intimately involved then and looks after all of the upgrades, they're cognizant of our customizations, and we haven't had issues with our customizations being impacted since.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of work, a lot of time required, but in the end, I think it's made us more streamlined and has definitely reduced the opportunity for human error, because provided you put it in correctly at the beginning, it flows through the system accurately.
Sure.
From inventory management, inventory counts, financial repercussion, all of that stuff is hand in hand connected all the way through the systems.
Sure. Excellent. Okay. Well, I have one final question for you, Brent, just in terms of if you have any, you've been giving us great advice right along the way here, and we thank you for that. Just wondering if you had any further comments for anyone who's considering implementing ERP?
Yeah, I just think kind of a recap a little bit on some of the key points. From beginning to end, the biggest thing for us to start with would be, or comment I would have, is consider hiring a consultant like Bryan. I'm not pitching Bryan shingle here for him, but consider hiring a Bryan
Sure.
to help with the search and selection process. There's all these questions about what is the service provider's provisions like. You mentioned it. What's their location? Are they local? Do they have local support? Is it national? Is it international support? How many users are in your immediate area? So if you ever need somebody to attend or support, do they have a service tech or somebody coming who's going to be in the area and they can pop by and discuss issues with you?
Absolutely.
A lot of them have a user network, and if you've got a local group that's using it, or a local 2 or 3 other companies, maybe you get to know those guys and you can reach out and say, hey, we're having this little problem. Have you seen that before? What would your comments be?
Sure.
Touched on it already, cloud-based. That would be something I would recommend over in-house.
Okay.
The comment of expensive, Is it expensive? It is expensive. I'm not going to
Mhm.
show you. It cost us a lot of money to get this program in there. Is it too expensive? That's something you need to decide on your own.
Yeah.
In the end, I feel it's worth it, but Bryan talked about your monthly fees for all of your programs. Ours are substantial for this program every year.
Yeah.
But again, it has to do with the size of your business and your needs. It's a lot of work, but it's an extremely valuable system if it's set up correctly.
Yes.
Patience. Patience is a big one. Have patience. Regardless of how prepared you are, there will be issues, and we still have issues now 7 years later. You may not need, again, ties back to Bryan's comments of being prepared and knowing what you need. You may not need all the modules. We don't, as I said, we don't use the CRM module to anywhere near its fullest extent.
Sure.
And one of the biggest thing, again, we're food manufacturers, and it is that quality control piece, that recall piece, lot tracking. Those things in the ERP system are paramount, I feel. It ties your lot tracking from your raw material supplier. So if you buy a defective piece for your widget, that defective piece, the lot number associated with it is in your system, and you can go back to your supplier and push back on them, just like your customers are going to push back on you if they have with your lot number. And again, the slides that Bryan had, the myths of the ERP, too expensive, too difficult, will solve all your problems. Those are very accurate points that Bryan made. It's not a one-time event. It is an ongoing, growing thing. And the food for thought stuff that Bryan touched on as well. Clear understanding of your requirements, and make sure that you involve as many people on your team as you can. Be prepared for change and try to limit the amount of customizations. All of those things are excellent points that Bryan, for anybody who's considering it, I would take Bryan's presentation and go through it again and hey, are we doing this? Are we doing that? Because it was a good presentation, very similar to the presentation we had when we worked with our provider, like Bryan, the guy that went out and hunted down what ERP systems would work for us. So.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Just one thought. So if someone was saying, this sounds great, maybe I'd like to do it in bits and pieces though, rather than jump in with everything. Would you, like, just from maybe some of the emphasis, and I guess maybe some of the potential opportunity costs, if someone was to start somewhere, do you think the lot tracking piece and the traceability piece would be probably the best way to start in terms of, potential cost benefit?
No, if you're going to do it all. At the end, I know it's nice to think you can piecemeal it, but basically what an ERP system does is bring all the pieces together. So you do need to do all the pieces at once.
Sure.
It's not a piecemeal type application, because really you're going back to what you had. If you're looking at moving away from piecemeal to ERP, do it all at once, because it does tie it all together. You talk about lot tracking and traceability. Well, that ties all the way back to your PO system for sending a PO to your customer to get the pieces to make your widget. Well, that ties in there, right? And that's your PO. And that's receiving. It ties to your production management. It ties through the entire system. So.
Oh, you're right. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Well, this has been awesome, Brent. Thank you very much. Karen, do we have any questions from our guests for Brent?
I do not see any questions. We can open it up. Does anybody have any questions for Brent? Well, Brent, we appreciate you taking the time away from your business to provide a layman's perspective.
No problem at all. I'm actually just getting ready to go on holidays. So.
Oh, good timing.
Oh, nice. Well, have a wonderful holiday.
I will. I'm going somewhere where people would not consider it maybe a holiday. I'm going to Vietnam. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, it looks very lush there and very humid and warm. So should be interesting.
Yeah, I don't see any more questions coming in, no hands raised. So yeah, I just want to thank both of you for a very informative session. And I do think it is important to hear of someone's actual experience with the system. So it's, yeah, great to hear. Just before I shut that off, we do have one question for you. From finding a consultant to project completion, what was the length of time?
Well, we installed an ERP program 7 years ago, so I would say 8 years, Todd. It takes about a year to ours was maybe 9 months, but from the time we engaged a consultant or started to look for a consultant to the time that we were installed and felt comfortable that the system was operating the way we wanted it to, I would say 12 months at a minimum. That said, constant change, constant improvements. As you realize what an ERP system can do for you, you realize it can do more for you. And you keep making improvements and changes and increases and tweaks. And at the end of the day, it is a lot of work, but I believe it's worth it.
That's good to know. Well, thank you again for this enlightening presentation, and it gives us a lot to think about.
Yep.
With that,
Just one
I think,
quick comment, Karen.
yes.
I mean, in all honesty, folks, if you do have questions after and you want to bounce something off of me, by all means, Karen, get in touch with Karen or Jeff, and they can give you my contact details, and I don't mind answering questions to help fellow food processors move along in the world. So
That's awesome. That's a very kind offer, Brent. Thank you very much for that.
but don't expect a response in the next few weeks.
Of course.
Well, thank you for that offer. Okay, moving on. We're going to look at some funding programs. First off, we have Jeff Fidyk, and my apologies, Jeff, for not introducing you sooner.
Oh, that's
Jeff,
okay.
Jeff is a sales and marketing professional with over 20 years of industry experience that includes category management and sales agent experience in the grocery industry. Jeff shares his body of experience with Manitoba entrepreneurs and food processors wanting to accelerate the commercialization of food and agri-products to retail grocery and food service. This includes assistance with helping calculate costs of goods as well as wholesale and retail selling prices. Jeff, thanks for offering your services today.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen.
Jeff,
Yeah, there's
your video is
a
not
lot
up.
more that I can. I'm sorry.
Your presentation is not up. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Let's. Oh, it wasn't sharing my screen. How embarrassing for me. Okay. I thought I was sharing the whole time.
Still not there.
Okay. It seems to take a moment.
Yes.
Here, well, if we move it around a little bit,
There we go.
we'll jiggle it.
Perfect. We
Good
can
to
see
go.
it.
Now we're there. Awesome. So this is me. All right. Yeah, in terms of Karen's introduction, I have a much longer biography that goes on of all the marketing things I've done throughout my career, but you reach a point where it's just like enough already. So I shortened it. So one of the roles that I play with Manitoba Agriculture in the value-added branch is I'm our guy who is responsible for our funding programs for processors. And Manitoba is going to have a new grant funding program coming. It's called the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership, or Sustainable CAP, or Sustainable CAP, if you like. There's also a federal program that was launched, I think about 2 weeks ago, by the exact same name. And they have a great program, and that's going to be consistent across Canada. But every province, including Manitoba, is going to have its own version of sustainable cap. And our version is designed by people like myself with the specific needs of our province in mind and with the specific things we want to accomplish in our province. So it's going to be rolled out in over a little bit of time. But one of the things that's going to be rolled out right away as part of the capital investment and infrastructure program is going to be something called Enterprise Resource Planning Software. So capital assets ERP software. What this is for is it's going to support the continued growth of companies that have business operations encompassing multiple pieces of equipment, maybe not, who knows, and processes and or multiple functional departments that currently are managed in silos and do not communicate with each other. So that's a pretty broad definition, and really the intent is to leave it fairly open to pretty well help you with everything we're discussing today. And again, you know, if you have other things beyond that that can be integrated under this whole theme, under the spirit of this program, then you know it's definitely worth consideration. This is going to offer a cost share ratio of 25% government and 75% applicant to a maximum contribution of $250,000 per project. The cost share ratios are you know, everything isn't 50-50 anymore. We had a 50-50 back in the Growing Forward 2 days, and it was great for the few people who were able to access the money in the 2.5 years that we ran the program out of 5 years. So by scaling back the contribution amounts, we are able to support a larger part of our industry. So I know I shouldn't be apologizing for the smaller contribution, because it still is a meaningful contribution, and I think still will be very helpful to you. In terms of eligible costs, I apologize for just reading all this to you. I hate doing that. But really, basically, it's going to be the purchase of software for process integration. So it can be all sorts of things, e-commerce, again, all the stuff we talked about, raw materials, finished goods, inventory, purchasing management, you know, so your inventories, processing plant controls, if you're able to do that in terms of getting your machinery talking, traceability management, order fulfillment, and other business processes that can be integrated. So pretty broad brush we're painting here. So purchase of software, if that's an option, and related hardware. So stuff like routers, switches, cables. So in case you're creating a system to create this interconnectivity within your facility, those would all be eligible. Computers would not be, because that's considered a multi-use item and we're not allowed to fund those. So those would be stricken. Tablets, smartphones, any sort of technologies like that you may need or may use in these implementations, but unfortunately it's not something we're allowed to fund. So and basically looking to support new ERP deployments. So if you already have a massive facility and you've got a system already and you're looking to add to it, that's not necessarily what we're looking to support. The other thing eligible is prepayment of subscription-based ERP software. So the research I've done on this, and just from what Bryan and Brent have mentioned, is that there can definitely be plans that you can do on a monthly payment plan. So we're looking that if it's possible to pay your vendor for a period of up to 3 years. So then it's prepaid, and then this, you know, we can actually actively support you know, the implementation of this. So we'll see how that works out. Professional services. So this would be for engaging with folks like Bryan to help you determine the feasibility, the costs, the scoping design, or if there's engineering people you need to talk to in terms of looking at your machines and saying, well, can they talk to each other? Can they talk to a central server or whatever? And we're looking to reimburse on the cost share formula if you do all the analysis and you decide, no, we can't do this, we can't afford this, or it's too disruptive, or you know what, we're planning a big capital infrastructure project in 2 years, we're going to put this on the shelf right now. So whether it goes through or not, we're still looking to support the exercise. It's kind of redundant here, professional services that contributes to the design and completion of an eligible project. And then finally, the fixed overhead for production operations. So this is kind of a new thing, and not inclusive of management or administration costs. So this is a new thing that would allow you to receive cost share funding for reimbursement of employee time. So previously, I think on the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, we didn't have it within the capital streams, but I think there were some streams within that program where there was what's called in-kind expenses were allowed. And essentially what that is to say, well, my employees are putting in this extra overtime and I need to compensate them, and the program would support that. They've found that it's a difficult thing to administer. So what they've done is they've scrapped in-kind right across the board, and they've included the fixed overhead. And what this is this can be up to 10% of the project value. And you can include costs such as the employee overtime, employee participation in the project, other costs that might be other things that you might be incurring. So this can be helpful in that fashion. So this has got to be a record for me because it is 6.5 minutes and I've done my presentation. I don't think I've ever done a presentation this quickly before. I didn't bother getting into all the non-eligible items. Really want to speak to what is eligible and what we can do for you. And the non-eligible items just tend to be, just other minutia. So, so with that, I'll ask if there's any questions or any clarification required.
Not seeing any questions, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And you mentioned when this will be available?
Yes, I do see a hand up from Amanda Sutter. Yes, it is going to be available as of April the 1st. And since I do have a little bit of extra time, before I answer Amanda's question, what I'll do is tell you that there are going to be 4 funding streams now with this new sustainable cap that we plan to launch on April the 1st. I guess I should have mentioned too is that it's still in the final stages of approvals. So I don't have final approval on everything. There's been approvals along the way, and there's been some tweaks made along the way, but I should have prefaced everything by saying like this is what we're planning. There may be some slight modifications once we finally go to market. We're also making a different application process this time. There's going to be a separate form where you enter all your company static information, and then you'll have a unique form for each program stream that you would complete. And you only do the information form once, and then there's a different application form for each stream. And in addition to the enterprise resource planning program stream, there's going to be the capital assets and equipment stream that you may know and love. And we've improved that one in the sense that we've closed the funding gap from $200,001 to under $1 million. So now it's going to be one stream that goes from $1 into about $25 million size project. And we've changed the cost share so that you'll receive a 50% cost share on the first $50,000 of project value, and 10% on every dollar thereafter, up to a maximum of $2.5 million contribution. So what this does is if you have a project that is, previously we capped out at a project value of $200,000, $50,000 contribution. So now if you have a project that is, let's say 500,000, you're going to be eligible for or 600, 700, $800,000. It'll be as a function of that actual project size. The other thing we're planning is that's 2. The other thing we're planning is something called the you know what if I just bring up my notes on this here? I'm just doing this all from memory, so sorry, excuse the pause here. Alrighty, co-packing capacity building. I should know this, I've been working on these. This one here, what we're looking to accomplish is that folks who have a processing facility right now, we want to encourage them to maybe consider offering co-packing to what we call brand owners. And the idea being is that we have a few clients where they have a brand, they're marketers really. They've built a brand and they've got a good following and they have a formula. So they've got the intellectual property of having a formula, and they can maybe they're manufacturing it already, and maybe they want to scale up but don't necessarily have the capital or want to expend the capital. We're looking to help them access existing processors. So there's going to be funding on both sides of that equation in terms of helping both parties to develop their capacities. And finally, one last one is quality control capacity building. And this is for processors to add quality control equipment into their facilities so they can do those kind of things, kind of like what Brent alluded to, where maybe you want to do a test of your inputs to make sure that everything's copacetic prior to running it through your process. So we want to add the capacity for that. I think that's going to help open market opportunities. So yeah, now I'll take your questions, please.
Sorry, Amanda.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, am I good? Yeah, okay, awesome. Good job. I was actually just going to ask about the
Hi,
other
Amanda.
grant. So this, hi, this grant isn't the same as like the capital grants and asset, right? It would be separate?
Jeff, are you there? I think we may have lost Jeff. Amanda, I will get Jeff to get in touch with you with your question, if that's all right.
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, he's there. Okay.
Oh.
Yep, I'm not muted. Maybe
No, we hear you.
I'm still
No,
here.
I hear
Okay.
you.
Okay,
So
great.
it's
Yeah, they are separate streams. So
Okay.
you would access one or the other.
Okay. And the other one, is that the 10% one now? Because I was was going off the 50%, or is it 25% cost share?
The capital assets one is going to be 50% for the first $50,000.
Okay.
So what that's intended to do is, the feedback we received is that the smaller scale processors were finding that the 25% contribution from CAP wasn't really adequate to their needs.
Okay.
So we've doubled that contribution, and yeah, just to make it more accessible to, more useful, I guess, to that scale processor.
Okay, awesome.
Excellent.
And then
Yeah,
how many of these can you apply for at once, or like what would you recommend?
You could apply for all 4 streams. Like if there was something you wanted to accomplish in each of the 4 streams I mentioned, you could apply for them all at once, just so long as there's no overlap between them. Or there is potential for overlap. You could access part of a project in one stream and the other part. So for instance, let's say someone was doing an ERP implementation, and it was $1 million project. You could access the ERP program and get the 25% contribution from that. And then I believe the balance of the project could be cost shared under the capital assets program.
Or
And
like
that's again paraphrased by, that's something we're thinking of doing. It seems like a good idea, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. So that's kind of where our minds are at right now in terms of how that could work.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll be calling you later.
Excellent. I'll look forward to it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff, as always, for letting us know about the information or the funding that is coming shortly. We will keep an eye out for that.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks. We have one more speaker today, and we have Natacha Moussi with us. She is the Outreach Manager for the Canada Digital Adoption Program.
Hi, thank you for the intro. And sorry, Jeff, I'm the one who kicked you off the screen share earlier. I think I got.
Oh, not a problem. No worries at all.
So I'm here to represent the Canada Digital Adoption Program. Can you confirm that you can see my screen well?
We can.
Fantastic. So I'll tell you today how to get 0% financing for a new ERP or any other type of technology for your business. So as mentioned, I'm the outreach manager for the Canada Digital Adoption Program, and I offer presentations and we exhibit at events as well to promote this grant program. So at a glance, the Canada Digital Adoption Program, which I'll refer as CDAP moving forward in the presentation, is a grant and loan program delivered by the federal government to help small and medium-sized businesses get new technologies. It comprises of 3 different components. So we have funding, skilled labor, and expert guidance as part of the program. So just to give a bit of history, this program was announced in Budget 2021 by Prime Minister Trudeau as a $4 billion program that was invested. It will help up to 70,000 businesses as part of this specific stream to receive support in digital adoption, and it will also provide up to 16,800 funded work placements. So here's how it works. First, we start with the grant. So you, as a business, can receive up to $15,000, and this is to hire a digital advisor who will perform a full tech audit of your business and produce a tailored digital adoption plan. So this digital adoption plan can include any type of technology recommendation for your business. So it could have to do with ERP, and also any other type of technology. Could be very basic, it could be very advanced. So it could be setting up an ERP system and then what's the next step, and then the digital advisor can create a roadmap for your business as to how to implement these technologies. The $15,000 goes towards paying this digital advisor. Now, these digital advisors come from the private sector and they signed on to be part of our program. We have over 2,000 digital advisors at this point listed in our program. So as a business, when you apply, you have access to what we call our marketplace of digital advisors. And you can choose, you can filter this list down by location, by area of expertise, by industry, and you can narrow down the list of maybe 5 to 10 digital advisors if you'd like, and start interviewing them and finding out which one would be the best fit for your business. Now, they will create a roadmap for you and identify technologies that you need. If you're looking specifically for an ERP or a CRM, you can mention it to your digital advisor and they'll go and find the types of ERP systems that exist on the market. So the different types of vendors, and they'll create like a pros and cons list for your business and let you know which one would probably be the most suitable for you. Now, the $15,000 will cover their invoice, and when you're interviewing them, they will provide a quote in the scope of work, what they'll be offering, and you'll know exactly how much they'll charge. So you'll know if the $15,000 will cover the entire bill or not. Also, the $15K covers up to 90% of their bill. The business is responsible for covering the last 10%. So now, once you have a digital adoption plan in hand, and you get the grant funding to pay back the digital advisor, now it's time to implement. You can go to BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada, and request 0% financing for up to $100,000 to go pay for those technologies that were recommended. So for example, if you're looking for an ERP system, the 0% financing can cover all the subscription fees, licensing fees. It can cover hiring a consultant for implementation. It can cover hiring employees for implementation. Any type of cost associated to getting and implementing a new technology will be covered by this loan by BDC. I know it's not free money that you don't have to pay back. You do have to pay it back eventually. It's a loan, And the payback over the years, it's no payment in the first year, and then it's a 5-year repayment plan, 0% up until the end of the 5 years. 0% financing is unheard of almost by BDC. So I do want to stress how special this financing is. So it's not something you can skip over and wait. I'll wait 5 years and get 0% financing later. It is a very exceptional type of program, and it's hard to find 0% financing. And then once you have implemented, once you start implementing, you can also hire either a student or recent graduate with the skills that you're looking for implementation. And it's subsidized work placement. And we cover up to $7,300 of their salary. So that equates to about 3 months worth of full-time work. So if you're hiring on a part-time basis, you have up to $7,300 on their salary. So I'll just go through the application journey again. So once you're ready to apply, you apply online. It actually takes under 10 minutes to apply online. You just need three things to be ready to go. You need to be the director of the company to apply, and you just need your login credentials, your personal login credentials on CRA, your business banking information, and your business banking login as well. So these 3 things, once you have them in hand, it actually takes under 10 minutes to apply and get fully approved online. Once you apply, get approved, you have access to the marketplace of digital advisors. You can go shop, interview digital advisors, and select the one you want to work with. And once you've completed the work with the digital advisor, you get a grant of up to $15,000 to cover the cost of the digital adoption plan. Once the plan is done, you go to BDC, apply for 0% financing for up to $100,000. And you can also apply for funded work placement of a skilled worker. Here are the eligibility criteria. So this is open to sole proprietor businesses or businesses incorporated under the laws of Canada or a province or territory. For for-profit businesses, privately owned, we're looking for businesses between 1 and 499 employees. The threshold in annual revenue is a minimum of 500,000 up to 100 million. And the company must meet all the requirements to be deemed a Canadian controlled private corporation. So that's the end of my pitch. If you're ready to apply, the website is right there, canada.ca/digital-adoption. And I'll open the floor for questions.
Are there any questions for Natacha? Natacha, I am not seeing any. I think this is a great program. Thank you for sharing that information, and it's great that people have this type of program to take advantage of to move their business forward. Do have one question. Amanda.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
I've applied for the DMI grant for like the $2,400 one. Does this one have special application requirements, like how many full-time employees you have, for example?
Yeah, as part of the eligibility criteria, you have to have a minimum of 1 employee.
Oh, that's it for this one?
That's it, up to 499. So that's how they determine the size of a business. So for small, medium-sized businesses, they deem between 1 and 499 employees.
Okay, because I thought there was another grant that I was trying to apply for, but I needed to have like 5 full-time employees.
There may be another grant.
Okay.
There are a lot out there, but for this one specifically, I can confirm it's just 1.
Oh, okay, awesome. And so what exactly is this one called then?
Canada Digital Adoption Program.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Canada Digital.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? I don't see anything. So Natacha, thank you. This concludes today's session on ERP systems. I'd like to thank Carissa, Bryan, Brent, Jeff, and Natacha for agreeing to share their knowledge and expertise with us. This session will be has been recorded and will be available online. I will send a link to you once that is ready to go. Once you check out of this session, Zoom will tell you that there is a quick evaluation for those of you that are participating on this live presentation. If you wouldn't mind collecting or filling out that information for us to evaluate what we're doing, making sure we're kind of on track with what we're offering our food processors, that would be great. And with that, I'd like to thank you and have a great rest of your day.